Very good to see you all. And so today, what we are going to talk about is a very interesting topic. Very perfect. It's actually perfect for the time right now because we all um, ca- can't really travel much. And so, what can we do as photographers? Right? What can we do as a bird and wildlife photographers? We are kind of stuck. We can only drive probably not too far from us. So I'm gonna talk about really just one thing, very quick. Like we try to get this live very quick. Is it possible to get good shots without traveling far? Right. So I remember back in when I first started wildlife photography. I don't know if you guys share the same thing as me. If you do, let me know. So I would be like I just got into bird photography and wildlife photography, and I would be driving on the freeway or just driving on local roads and all. And what I would do is I would look at into every single telephone pole, and then on top of the pole, I would see if there's any birds there. And then I see like red-tailed hawk and all. I got really excited and said yes. And then if there's some really cool stuff, I would even stop my car and then just I have my camera right next to my chair. I have my 100 to 400, and I would just go out and then I would just keep shooting, right, shooting up at the telephone pole. And if they take flight, and I say yeah, and then I just got a few quick shots. I'm pretty quick in here, right? So I just just shoot up like this, and then like get a few shots. And but the problem, what is the problem, guys? The problem is those photos are not gonna be any good. Why? Because you're really shooting up, and then you're just getting the underbody, and the light is usually harsh, and sometimes you see them riding the thermal, right? And you think that as long as they are not too high up, you get good shots, right? But at the end, it is not as easy, right? Because right now, especially now in Facebook and Instagram, right? Every day, like how many photos do you see? Tons and tons of photos, right? And I read a survey. They said in the 80s, people's attention span was 7 minutes or 9 minutes. And up until 2, 3 years ago, the attention span is still 8 or 9 seconds. But now with Instagram and Facebook, the attention span is probably less than 1 second. Like if you are talking to people and within 1 second, like you'll be like browsing Instagram, like right now. I know you're already distracted, and then you say, I don't know what this Tin Man is talking about. And let me just go to Instagram and see what other nice poses it is, right? So that's a problem. And I read somewhere that they were teaching about how to write a novel. They said if you write as good as Shakespeare now, it's not gonna work because people just change, right? With technology and everything, our attention span is no longer like back in the days, right? So you have to really change to a new style in order for people to even stop to take a look at your photo. So I hope that you also agree that our photography needs to be changed, right? Back in the days when people were taking films, and there were not a lot of access, right, for people to go to wild places and all this. So I mean, we don't have our own camera to take our own photos, but nowadays everybody have that. So we have to change it, right? So how do we change it? I remember one time I took some photos, right? And then I went to an expert and photography expert, and I said, hey, I want to ask you, look, take a look at my photo, right? How do I improve the background? The background looks like really distracting, and there's some branches sticking out of the head of the animals behind it, and it just didn't look good, right? And the expert looked at me and said, like, why do you even take a photo to get that? Well, the reason was we photographers should change our perception when we take photos, right? Back in the days, when I first started, I see an animal, I got super excited, and then I just go out and chase and try to get a picture of an animal. And when we have this, it's called the tunnel vision, right? The tunnel vision is we only see the animals, and then we nail a lot of shots and say, yeah, I got the eye contact, I'm so excited, right? Super behavior, right? Like I just saw this red-tailed hawk just snap a snake right there, and then look at my beautiful photos, right? All we were looking at were just the action and all. And the expert said that for photographers, we really have to change this mindset. Because why? Because every time when we got back home, we look at the photos, and then we saw this stick coming out from the head of the hawk and all this distraction in the background. And I said, it's impossible. When I was there taking the photos, I was sure that that branch was not there. And the reason was we had this, when we got excited, right, adrenaline rush and everything, we would not be able to see those things. So we really have to, so the number one tip is really we have to step back and calm down just a little bit. I remember I was talking to one of my photography idols, Paul McKinsey. I don't know if he's on the live today. He sometimes he stopped on this group and post some photos. And I remember one of his recent posts was talking about background. He talked about how important background is. And then just yesterday, I'll post a link here later. I was just browsing on the internet, and you remember yesterday when I talked about one of the famous National Geographic photographers about how important the light and everything was. I mentioned that one of the big names was Joe Satori, right? So I just came across his tutorial on photography, and he actually really talked about it. Like, he described it perfectly. He said, as a photographer, we should start with the background first. And then I look back into the last 10 years, really, as I evolved as a photographer. Right now, whenever I went out to take photos, it was really interesting. I think I had this talk with Paul McKinsey the other day too. Now, I don't look at the animals anymore. When I go into the field, the first thing I was looking at, or actually the whole time, I knew the animal that I was looking at, or the bird I was looking at was right there. But what I'm looking at, what I can see really was I was just looking at the background constantly. And if the background was not perfect, meaning that if the background couldn't evoke an emotion, you all remember yesterday when I talked about how if a guy proposed to a girl, right? How different is it if he proposed in front of a dumpster, right, in the back row, or on top of a mountain with backlit, like the last moment of sunset, right? How different is this? So what I would do is I would only look for backgrounds with unique colors, or even black or unique colors, and I would just walk around, and if I didn't see any of those backgrounds, I would just enjoy my time. I know that it's not going to be a good photo. And Joe Satori proved that in his video. He said, we have to build our photos from the ground up. And the first fundamental is we shouldn't even talk about clicking the shutter if the background is not really, really perfect. So that's why when I asked the expert, like, how can I improve my background? He was shocked, because if the background was not even perfect, he would not even take a photo, because it's never gonna work. Really, it's really never gonna work. So that's the number one lesson that I talk about is I learned that I should never think about how I can use my editing or other techniques to maybe improve the background. If I don't even have a nice background, I wouldn't even shoot. So how do we connect this with our neighborhood birds and animals, right? So that's the key thing. So you remember I told you to write down a list of blue herons, egrets, and red-tailed hawk, and some of you have red foxes in their neighborhoods too. Think about over that area, like what kind of background can you get? Like if you really couldn't get a super nice background, it's still gonna be good to look at the animals. I mean, I love animals, right? But enjoy the moment, but it's not gonna be a really, really good shot. So that's the reverse kind of thinking, right? So that's number one, okay? So the number two is instead of driving around and looking for an animal or birds and then just get ready, right? We all develop those perfect system, right? We have the lens right next to our seat and with all the settings, and then we just pull over the car, grab the lens, and then go out and then shoot, right? Well, what I learned later was if the light. So first secret is the background, right? The background is super important, and if a second thing is if the light is not really dramatic, it is very difficult, and especially with the animals nearby, because do you guys all know about my UTD method? Did I mention to any of you here? Like if you have watched my webinar before, you know I talk about the UTD method. So so why is like all these famous let me see why are all these like Breaking Bad, all these TV series, why are they so powerful nowadays? Why are they so successful instead of the back in the days Shakespeare? Right, nowadays we really have to have something that is completely different. So the key thing for the success of the art form nowadays is that they all have to have the UTD method, UTD factor. The UTD is U is unexpectedness, T is the twist, D is the drama. So if your photo didn't have those, it just is very difficult. And even if you have a perfectly executed photo, it's going to be the same as 500 other photos on Instagram and Facebook. So you really have to have that twist. And how do you have that twist? It has to be just like what I talked about yesterday when the National Geographic photographer failed his first assignment, right? His boss threw away all his photos after he spent a lot of time. If you couldn't get you couldn't even get this dramatic light into the photos, it is very difficult. And for him, it was for animals that is already very difficult to see, right? But for animals like for example, what would be a common wildlife in your neighborhood, right? I know Bob mentioned that, like deer, right? If we are already at a disadvantage that it is a common species, right? If it is a polar bear, if it is a wolverine, if it is a lynx, right, or red fox and red fox pups and kids and all, it already had a intrinsic, is it called intrinsic unexpectedness there, right? People just love to see them, right? But in terms of a deer, like in order for a picture like that to evoke emotion, you have to add something unexpected in it. But if this is just a deer walking by, how do you add this unexpectedness? Well, the only way is you have to include some dramatic light and some really unique background into the photo, right? Otherwise, you just can't. It's not a competition, but in terms of evoking emotion, it is very difficult to compare with a photo with like a black wolf, right, looking at you close up and all. So the second tips I can give you is be more selective in choosing the light. And you said, but Tin Man, I spend a whole day and I don't get a lot of good light. Well, just go out during sunrise and sunset and be brave. Like even though a lot of the experts will say, oh, the light is not gonna be enough and all. Try it. Go out and give it a try. And I remember some of you say that, Tin Man, when I tried to go to those places in sunrise and sunset, all I got was just a blob of super underexposed birds and animals, right? So that really got into the communication of your camera. So your camera is a machine, right? The camera do the metering based on what you tell the camera. Like for example, the camera was actually very scared. Like every time when you press the shutter, they didn't know what to do. You have to give them reference. Like for example, if you were shooting something that is really, really bright, the camera would be say, oh, it seems to be so bright. Maybe I should just tone down the exposure, right? And then they take a test photo and then they ask you if this is okay, right? And if it's really dark, and the camera would guess that, oh, maybe the owner, my master, want to have a brighter image, so they tone it up, right? So for example, if you're shooting backlit, right, you're shooting right to the bright sky right there. Your camera is gonna think that, oh, it is so bright, I gotta darken the environment, right? So that's why they darken everything except the perfect sky right there, right? So the bird automatically becomes much darker, right? So how do you get rid of that problem, right? One of them is to really master your metering. But the second thing is if you're shooting backlit, just don't shoot into the light. Just don't shoot into the sky. Try to look for something darker in the background so that everything you shoot is still kind of dark, except like the backlit of the animal and all. Then your camera will know that, okay, so the whole scene is still kind of balanced, right? It doesn't have this super bright sky, so I don't need to suddenly tone down the metering. And some of you may use manual exposure, which is okay, but the problem there is during sunrise and sunset, the light just kept changing nonstop. And if the animal's action is also nonstop, it might be problematic, because every 10 seconds, maybe the light would drop like half of a stop. And like, how do you know when you do it, right? So you got to be very careful on that. So that's number 2, right? Choose the light very wisely. And if you want me to elaborate more, I can do that later. But today is more about the mindset, right? So number three is actually the most important thing is really you have to have an open mind, and you also have to have your goal oriented. So instead of going passively into, okay, like, so today I heard, like I was just talking to my good friend Salah, and he said, hey Tin Man, why don't you come join me to shoot somewhere near Huntington Beach and in some of those places, right? And a lot back in the days, I would just say, okay, yeah, let me grab my lens and then I'll go, right? But now I would think about, let me think about the direction of the light. Let me think about what kind of background can I get. And when I go there, I would pick my spot. And even if everybody else, well, this is actually very important, is a lot of the photographers, they will stick at one place, right? And typically what we do is we will say, oh, these must be really, really good photographers. I better stick with them, right? So that I don't miss out, right? But later, what I find out is if I have my own plan to go to a place and then I just go there and wait, sometimes I'll get much better shots in there. So today I actually want to show you one of my clients, Bob's photos and Melissa's photo on how they do it. So I was talking to Bob. Bob, you're here, right? So I talked to him, and he recently got a really, really nice photo of a Castro, and I asked him, like, wow, like, how long did it take you to get it? And he said, well, he was just listening to me talking, and then the next day he just went into his neighborhood, and then he got a photo like this. Let me share with you this photo, so you can see it. See here. Okay, this one. Okay, so this one is a so what can you see right here? What you can see right here is, do you still remember my 3 tips? The number 1 tip is what? A perfect background. So this is a perfect background. There's absolutely no distractions, right? Can anybody tell me if they can find any distraction if it is completely black? Well, so by the way, a lot of you actually asked me, like, oh, did he just like use Photoshop to clone away everything in the background? No, actually it's not. You really have to understand the light and the shadow and everything to really make this. So it seems to be simple. You just find a black background. It's not as trivial, but Bob was able to find that perfect background, right? And then the second thing, right? What is the second tips that I gave you? The second tip is only go at sunrise and sunset. And when 90% of the photographers arrive 30 minutes after sunrise, and if you can get there 30 minutes before sunrise, you have what? An hour more time to play with your shots, to be more creative. And I mentioned to you, right, in Instagram and Facebook, when you see 1,000 photos that are all similar, and if you can have a photo that is much more unique in terms of the light, then you can you can create more powerful shots, right? So anyway, so for this photo, also the perch is also very beautiful as what Bob got, and then he even got the eye contact with the bill open, which is I don't know how he get it. So he's super talented. And so the thing is, I always ask my clients to what they can try is, instead of posting in one group, like for example, if you post it on a photography forum, right? And sometimes even if your photo is really good, but because of the timing, because of whatever people are busy with, a good photo may not get anybody to see it, right? So I always ask them to post in multiple groups at the same time, and then try to analyze the comments and see what your photos make people feel, right? So Bob posted the photo into several groups, and surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, the result was very consistent. For example, let me show you here. Close it here and here. So he posted this in I think it was in NANPA, North American Nature Photography Association, and within a few hours, he got more than 600 likes and like tons of comments and all, and also in the other groups too. And it just very efficiently evoked the emotion right there, right? And it is just not a one-time thing. So let me let me just stop for a second, and then so I mentioned to you that what is the most common species that a lot of people will see as a wildlife is deer, right? So you would think that for a deer it is just very difficult to get a shot, and so Bob got a photo, and I asked him, so how far did you drive this time to get this photo? And he said, well, was it in your backyard, right? So let me share that photo right here. Is that is it deer one? Okay, I think it's this one right here. So yes, so he posted a photo, this one, and can you believe that? So this do you have the link there, Bob? Maybe you can post it here. I don't have the full resolution photo. I think I have, but no. But if you look at that photo again, you see that the background also pure black. There's some information about the background, some like glow of the back, but most of all, it is the antler and all this. And let me show you another one. He posted this one right here, and again, I mean, both of these. Like, look, if you look at this one, it has like 1,000. Likes, and this one has 1,000 likes, 147 shares. And let me show you that photo of his. So it's this photo right here. So you see that the photo is actually very simple, but you know, with the backlit and everything, and then with the eye contact, and then all the is it called the hair or the fur, the hair, all have catching that. So it becomes a very unique photo. And once it is unique, once the photo has the UTD factor, the unexpectedness, the twist, you know, and the twist is where this antler is, right? Bob was able to see that. Look at this too. The antler. It's almost like the OK sign of the hand, right? So it gives you kind of like a how do you say, a subtext. When you look at a photo, it makes people think. It is very powerful, right? So there's no surprise that Bob's photo was able to get. Look at that, right? Over 1,000 likes and hundreds of comments and over 100 shares and all. And this is what I mean by having this free secrets. When you carry this free secrets to go out to shoot, you can get photos like this. And that's not it, right? So Bob, congrats for all the success for that. We will talk more about Bob later. But I want to share with you another photo, which was also by one of my clients. They were super talented. Melissa, a lot of you know her, right? She's super talented. And she got a photo like this. Look at that. So it's a burrowing owl. So how many of you have seen a burrowing owl? So burrowing owl, we can see a lot of them in Southern California, right? And like if you go to eBirds, right, there are a lot of reports on that too. So it's a rather common species, right? So how do you, and if you just Google it, you see a lot of blurring out photos, right? But how do you make it unique, right? That's the thing, right? If you don't have the UTD factor in your photo, it's never gonna work, no matter it is how perfect. Like you will get a super sharp photo on a beautiful perch, beautiful branch of an owl there with eye contact and everything. It's not gonna work. Why? Because there are just way too many of those good photos. And in order to evoke the emotion of viewers, you really have to go one extra step. And here, Melissa went this one extra step. And if you look into this photo, right, the motion, the background is perfect. And and I remember Melissa was these mosquitoes, or what is it that is looking like these little stars right here. So if this is mosquitoes or flies, and because Melissa understands that these little flies and all, because they have these translucent wings, and if the backlit shines on them, and from a distance, it will almost look like these little stars, right? So from this one, she was also able to create also another subtext. If I look into this photo more, it's almost like a composer, right? Doing like the Disney. Anybody have been to Disneyland to watch that? What is the name of that show where they have the water fountain, and then the Mickey Mouse was doing the composer thing, and then like the water was splashing. I mean I don't know why, but this photo reminded me of that. But anyway, so you guys can see that like 1 and 2 is number 1 is perfect background with no distraction. You should start with that instead of the animals, right? I don't know, Paul is not there, Paul McKinsey, but I'll have him to confirm that. Second thing is great light for common species sometimes can evoke more emotion than boring light with a Wolverine. Well, maybe not Wolverine, but a very like rare subject, because we humans, well, I actually read some books about that, because it is so I try to understand why this kind of dramatic light always evoke emotion, and I talked about it yesterday too. It's deep into our brain, in that like our emotion easily got back to all this sweet moment with our loved ones in the sunrise and sunset, right? I don't know if any of you would remember the first time when you see a sunrise, and then you remember like who was that person next to you when you saw this first ray of light. And so when you see something like this with the wild animals, somehow your memory will just drag back into those moments, and then you feel this emotion combined with that, and I don't know how it works. And it is almost like when you see some very interesting shape in the photos of of wildlife or bird photos, say a triangle or circle. I actually look into that too. So the main reason why we want to have those cool, beautiful like triangle and circle shapes into our photo is because we all study geometry and everything, right? In the mathematics class. I don't know how many of you like those classes. But the thing is, people always feel that nature is chaotic, right? We always want to find meaning. God, I just went into this deep philosophical thing. So, but in the most bottom part of our heart, we always want to find meaning. We want to find why we are here in this world. Is this all chaotic, right? Is this crap happening nowadays? Is it all just chaos and all? We always want to find order in the chaos. So what is order? Order is some kind of shapes that we are familiar with, like a triangle and a circle and all. So when we see nature showing this, I don't know if you can name some of the famous photographers who took beautiful landscape photos, right? With like sometimes when you see this pattern of the trees and everything just like line up like beautiful, and then you think like, how can that be possible in nature, right? And because of that feeling, it is also the feeling of finding orders in chaos. It is almost like finding meaning. So people love that. But anyways, if you want to go more into this philosophical thing, I can talk for 100 hours, but not about this. But here, anyway, so I want to keep on talking about Melissa, right? Melissa, are you here? I think you are here. So Melissa posted this photo. So before I talk about how she was able to evoke emotion, I remember she was telling me like, hey, Tin Man, I'm gonna go try out this method tomorrow morning, like before sunrise. I have this plan about this and that. which is number 3 that I was talking to you, just like Bob, these amazing photographers, they already have a mindset about their goal, right? They knew, well, I don't want to say it as a goal, but so for wildlife photography, I think we should not have, surprisingly, we should not pre-visualize our shot before we go to a place. What I want you to think about is you think about all the possibilities, like you kind of understand the situation. But I know some of the famous photographers, they would just like have a notebook and let me just show you my super handsome face first. I know you all miss me. So, some of the famous photographers, they would say, okay, I want to have these iconic animals in this iconic place. And what they would do is they would go to a place and then they will have, they will use all kinds of method to make sure that they will get the shot in their mind. And then once they did it, then they go home. And I want to puke when I think about it. I mean, like, who here still love to do assignments like back in the kindergarten days or the elementary days? Like the teacher asks you to do an assignment, and then you finish all the math exams like 2 + 2 multiplied by 2 = 4 and all. This is so boring, right? This is so boring when you have everything in mind, and then they say, okay. And then they'll hire all the guys and say, just make sure this shot happens. And then they take the shot and then they pose it and say, look at these iconic photos. I don't like that. I want nature to guide me. I want nature to surprise me. But what I want is I want to understand like what kind of light it is, what kind of background I can get. And once I have an idea, then I let nature does its work, right? It's like, just show me your wonder, show me your miracle. I'm here, but I'm ready. I know exactly how to evoke emotion based on my own feeling and all. So you have this kind of different ingredients, right? Like the number 1 and number 2 ingredients. Now you can all say that, right? What is number 1? Number 1 is background oriented. You think about the background first before you even try to raise your camera. So a lot of the times, I remember I went to a lot of places, different tours and all. And people will, the guy will stop me at a place and then they see the animals and then they will look back at me and say, like, Tinman, why are you not shooting, right? This is a really great, like beautiful, elusive animals right there. And I will look at the animals and I will smile. I don't want anything to distract me from enjoying the moment with the animal. But I know that this photo is not going to work because the background is not super. So I would just like, I would not even, I would still take a few photos just for the identification and like kind of like I was here, right, kind of thing. But I know that there is nothing I can do in terms of creativity there unless I can see a potential. And then I may ask them to move the vehicle or get me to other places. But otherwise, everything should be started from the background. And that expert really taught me that I should never ask people again about like, oh, how can I improve this background? Because basically the first question is, if it is not even a good background, why do you even press the shutter? Because I mentioned that in my webinar. I don't know if you guys have remember that. I gave the example of one time I bought a really expensive, 2 expensive tickets for me and my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, going to, I shouldn't laugh actually, sorry. So we went to Les Miserables, which was my favorite show. So we bought the tickets and because I love the show, I watched it more than 10 times, not with 10 ex-girlfriends. God, what I'm talking about, I shouldn't talk to you. So I went there and I bought the best seats, right? And everything was perfect. But right before the sound, like dun dun, the sound comes in, this big guy was late and somehow people allowed them to come in. I was surprised. They should have closed the door, right? Locked the door, whatever. But he came in and then he was right in front of me, standing. And then he was like reaching for his phone and everything. And then all the noise and all. And then it just ruined it completely. And this can be totally connected with a distraction in the background. No matter how careful, no matter how beautiful the moment is, if you have any distractions in the background, it is exactly like this big guy standing in front of you, blocking like Sean Valjean singing the first song. No. So if you like the show, like hit me up if you like drop a line if you like the show too. God, every time I cry when I watch that show. Anyways, so let me show you another thing. So let's get back to Melissa's photo. So when Melissa showed that photo, posted that photo, let me see where it is. Here. Okay. So Melissa had a goal. She had kind of like the semi pre-visualized, right? She knew what she's gonna get, but I bet she didn't expect this moment to happen, right, Melissa? I guess you did not pre-visualize that there would be some flies there, right, and some mosquitoes, right? You're struggling for that. But the thing is, when you prepare everything perfect, nature always award you with some wonder. And just like this photo, really beautiful. And so she posted it in Nampa. And I know a lot of people would say that, oh, I don't care about lights and I don't care about that. It's all about my self-expression. But I think in terms of photography, what I always talk to my clients is that it is almost like learning violin or maybe even race car driving. Well, for photography, it is different. Because why? Because everybody can just buy the most expensive camera, and then they can just use the index finger, right, to press on the shutter, and then they become a photographer. They become the so-called photographer. And a lot of the photographers never really spend the time to master their craft, and they would just use their instinct to say, I just feel it, and once I can feel it, I press it, and then it's gonna be a great shot. And this is okay. This is definitely okay to get a few lucky shots. But I refer you back to Robert McKee's book on story. I mentioned it this morning too, or yesterday, I forgot. Robert McKee, he mentioned that a lot of artists actually had this mindset, and this is actually very dangerous. Because if they don't understand, if they don't, deconstruct what are the ingredients that make their art speak to people, and they were all only relying on their talent. Talent can only get you that far. But if you were willing to have an open mind and say, okay, I know I'm talented, but I also know that I need to learn more about this craft by looking back into hundreds of years of oil painting, how the visual artists are doing and all, and really break down about, look back into your most successful photos and think about what works, what didn't. And a lot of the gurus will teach you something different. I mean, it took me a long time to have the courage to even go in this low light situation, because it is not taught by most of the gurus, right? Because the thing was, it's not that the gurus, that the experts were wrong. The main reason why they didn't teach you that, anybody know why they didn't teach you to go like before sunrise or after sunset? Well, the reason was a lot of these experts, a lot of these even National Geographic experts, they got famous before digital camera happens. And so they were shooting at Fuji Velvia. Anybody knows Fuji Velvia? I ask that question all the time. ASA 50, right? Which is equivalent to ISO 50. Or maybe they use Provia, right? The slides, right? All these films. In their days, with such a low ISO, because if you go to ISO 400, it will be so noisy, right? And then they use manual focus camera and all. It was just impossible to get good shots in those times unless they use flash. And I don't like to use artificial light on wild animals or birds in that. I mean, I just want to maximize the natural light onto that. So back in the days, those experts were right, but it was in a different age, right? It's the Shakespeare's age, right? Not to say bad things about them. I mean, there are so many iconic photos by these, and I admire them very much. But it was all similar to like what Shakespeare was doing, right? Shakespeare has great work, Romeo and Juliet, and all these things, right? I mean, but then it has to be converted into a modern film to understand that if you're still reading those, unless you are very good in literature, right? But you just no longer can make people to look at it. And if your photos couldn't make people to stop and look at it, like if you didn't have the ingredients that they cannot look away, then what is the point, right? I mean, self-expression is good, but only if you are already super famous, then people will take you seriously. Then you can do all this self-expression with very high art kind of like really high art form of abstract and all this. But if your photo right now couldn't even make people to stop for a second to look at it, couldn't even get like here 669 people and 123 like people who really respect back your work, it is very difficult to get into another stage where you actually finally you understand all these ingredients. You can make people cry, you can make people laugh, you know exactly all these ingredients, and then you can rise to the next level to really do self-expression and artistic stuff, which is what I was talking about. Because camera, right? Everybody can press the button and call them a photographer. But if you play a violin, right? Can you just grab a violin and then I'm talented. It's just I can use my talent to play a Paganini, like the super fast thing and all. You can, right? Because you really have to break it down step by step and get to like, is it called level 8 or level 9 and whatever, and then you can add into your own self-expression and feelings of that. So anyway, do I have more photos to show? Oh yeah, so I have so yeah, congratulations Melissa and Bob for your success for your great photos. They have a lot of great photos, so guys and girls, check them out. Melissa and Bob, I think they're in the audience. But let me see how to do this. So yeah, my super handsome face again. So I also want to show you another photo. So this one right here. So this one, here, like this, right? So this is a metal print. So anybody have tried a metal print before? So it's beautiful. So look at the back, right? So they have like you can easily hang it up here, and then yeah, you can just make a print, and it's just beautiful, and the color is really good. I think it is a little bit overexposed and all. But again, can you see what it is? So here, the background, not here, here, yes, there's some delay. So, it's a clean background, eye level. And at first, I didn't really like this part, which was really bright. But somehow, some people say that it almost looked like the outlet was coming out from a time tunnel into another space or something like that. So again, this one, right? The light, sunrise and sunset time, background, very important. And also, I have the plan to get this shot before I even go to the place.